Yes, people, welcome back to another video on Never a Foul. The news just keeps on rolling in. And it might be finally the news that Tottenham fans are looking for. Tottenham fans have been hoping for, because reports are coming out that Ange Postecoglou has been sacked from Tottenham. And already the first thing you think about as a football fan is, who could replace him? Who could it be? Or you're on the flip side. Are you thinking, do you know what? I would have given Ange a bit more time. Why did they sack him? Give him one more season after winning the Europa League to see what we can do in the Champions League. I don't know, but personally, I think Tottenham need a change. I understand the reason for the move. And we're going to talk about replacements and also Ange's time here at Spurs. So, guys, make sure you do like this video. Make sure you do subscribe, get your comments in as well. Because obviously the news is coming out now that Ange Postecoglou is going to be sacked from Tottenham Hotspur. Now, I think a lot of people are going to say it's the right decision. It's the right call. And I hear it. I hear it, to be honest. I don't think it's one of them decisions that's going to be looked at and a lot of fans are going to be unhappy with. I think most fans, if you are Spurs fans, 70% want him gone. Probably 7 out of 10 people, if you put it in that way in simple maths, want him gone. And a decision looked like it's going to be happening. And do you know what? He leaves on a great note. He won the Europa League. He gave them silverware the first time in literally, since 2008 when they won the Carabao Cup. And he can say, look, I won a trophy, but it just didn't quite work out. And it doesn't mean he's a shit manager. Excuse my French, but I do think Ange can come again, maybe overseas. But Tottenham have to move on. And with Ange last season, everyone knows Manchester United, Tottenham, they both had poor seasons. Tottenham finishing 17th. The only teams below them were Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton. Now, I'm sorry, but that's just completely unacceptable. And we all know that's unacceptable. Spurs are a team that want to be competing for top 4. Yes, they've got the Champions League through winning the Europa. But the truth is, they want to be competing for top 4, if not at least finishing in the top 6 and finishing in the European positions. Because I think one thing that the league tells you is that it's the bread and butter. That's where the consistency is. The league is where the consistency is. That's 38 games over a long, hard season. Cup competitions, favour of the draw, 2 legs. Some teams have got a much better squad than the others. And you maybe don't find out how difficult it is until the last semi-final or the final. Look at Tottenham, like no disrespect to them, but Bodo Glimt in a semi-final of a Europa League, I think a lot of teams in the Premier League would beat them over 2 legs. So that just goes to show the level of the competition. But again, I'm not trying to belittle Spurs. I would have been happy if Man United won the Europa League. But what I'm trying to say is the league is much more difficult in terms of opposition, home and away, 38 games, consistency. And Spurs haven't had that this year. Looking at their league form, won 11, drawn 5, and lost 22. Again, the only teams that have lost more games than them were Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton. That's unacceptable. The goal difference finished on -1, scored 64, conceded 65. So Tottenham actually scored a few goals. When you look at it in terms of the league, they probably finished in the top 6 for scoring goals. But it was shipping them the other end. And look, I know Van der Ben's had his injuries. I know Romero's had his injuries. At the end of the day, still on a coach to try and get the best out of the squad and move them forward. And Ange couldn't do that. And I don't think it's like all Ange's fault, of course. I think he's stuck to his principles. He's tried getting more out of these players. He done well in his first season, well, you could say, started well when he was in his first season. But the players haven't been able to kick on too. And some players like Heung-min Son, Dominic Solanke, obviously I know, it's his first season. Romero, Van der Ven, injury-wise, Basuma, even the quality-wise, they haven't quite stepped up. There's going to be Spurs players out there that I look at and I think you're better than what you showed this season. But they also haven't stepped up. But then you get the belief, you get the backing from the manager, you get the tactics from the manager, it all falls on the manager's head, unfortunately. And that looks like it is going to be happening with Ange Postecoglou. One thing I do want to say about Ange is, the signings he brought in, I actually think these are signings that at least the club can work with moving forward with a new manager. There was Dominic Solanke, obviously Premier League proven. Bournemouth got 20 goals the year before that. Hard season for Spurs, hard season for Solanke, but I think he'll improve. Brennan Johnson, bit like Martinelli in terms of they're a bit road runners, kick the ball and run. Not too much about them, but they're just effective in terms of, they give you a bit of depth. They can pop up with some big goals when needed, and they're good for the squad. James Maddison, we all know what James Maddison can do on his day, a brilliant footballer. Whether he can get the consistency back, that's another question. Archie Gray, a very good young up-and-coming footballer, come from Leeds United. I think he can play obviously defensive midfield. He can play at right back. He can play at emergency centre back. That's fine. Pedro Porro was brought in. We all know the quality of Pedro Porro. Van der Ven, again, super fast, got the athleticism, only going to get better at his age. And then you got Kulusevski as well. I think a player that is very underrated, if I'm honest, in the pockets, out wide. And then you got Wilson Odobert, who again, a young French under-21 international, I believe he is as well, can play off the left, can play off the right. That's a signing with potential, and you kind of are in the unknown with that. When you look at it, Lucas Bergvall, another one that I think is probably going under the radar in terms of when you look at his price, I think of 10, 15 million, that's going to potentially work out a super signing because you're going to be looking to offload him. I'm not saying Spurs want to let go of him, but when he eventually leaves, that'll be 50 million plus because he looks like he's got real potential. So I think the signings that Ange brought in, to his credit, I think quite a few of them are actually working out and they're showing the quality. And I think they will be good players. So fair play to Ange because the next manager will have some good players to work with. But that's the question. Who will be the next manager? Who will be the next manager? There's two names for me that are standing out right now. And there was three. I'll get rid of the one that's going to stay. Glasner was the first one. I thought if he was going to leave Crystal Palace, he would stay in London, maybe go to Tottenham, who obviously knocked out his former club Frankfurt in the Europa League, and maybe try and do something there. Glasner's staying at Palace for a year, put that aside. So the two names that Spurs are looking at, Marco Silva, Thomas Frank. Which one do you choose? I have my answer. Thomas Frank. Thomas the Tank Engine Frank. Get yourself to Tottenham. You've done everything you could possibly achieve at Brentford, which is probably just not getting into Europe yet. However, everything else you could have possibly done with Brentford, getting them up from the Championship, making them a sustainable Premier League club, showing your tactical versatility, showing your man management, being approachable, presentable. I've seen your interviews and the way you speak in front of the camera as well as a normal human being. He just seems like a very good human being, a very good man manager, which is needed at this time, and a manager that's actually ready for the step up. Because you look at Brentford this year and they finished 10th, 16 wins, 14 defeats. But you've got two strikers that got 38 goals between them combined. Vissa and your right winger, right attacking forward, Brian Mbeumo, 20 goals in the league. You had Ivan Toney only last year getting nearly the same numbers, went to Saudi Arabia, but you got him through the Championship into the Premier League and made them proper Premier League players. I feel like Thomas Frank is adaptable. He's shown that he can play a 4-2-3-1. He's also shown that he can play a 3-5-2. So he gives that flexibility to the league. It may be in away games, maybe he shores it up at the back a little bit more, but also at home, he wants to be more attacking. Players seem to like him. I think Thomas Frank is ready for a step up. And the reason is funny, right? Because Ruben Amorim's obviously at Man United. One of my mates wants Thomas Frank to be the Man United manager. And I've been arguing with him saying, Thomas Frank, not to Man United. I'm not feeling that. Because I just feel like there's maybe a difference from going. And look, I'm not trying to, I know where Man United are, but in terms of a club, I feel like Brentford to Man United is a big jump, but Brentford to Tottenham is like the perfect step. And I feel like staying in London, Brentford to Tottenham want a new manager, someone with Premier League experience would help, a good man manager, plays two different formations so it suits the players. I think Thomas Frank is ready. I think he's the guy. I can't look out there right now and think of many managers that are probably better in this situation. You know, if you guys disagree in the comments, let me know. But I do think Thomas Frank could be the guy. I'm not saying leads Tottenham to loads of glory, this and that. I just always think Tottenham are going to unfortunately fall short of like Premier League or obviously winning a Champions League. That's a long way. But they want to be a sustainable club that are competing for the Champions League spots. They want to be competing for the domestic trophies now. They've now won the Europa League. Once you want one, once you've got one, you want more. That should be the elite mentality of a football club and football players in that team. You want to taste that success again. And I just feel like it works. And I think one bonus of Thomas Frank is that he can coach, like I said, he's improved Wissa Mbuemo, Ivan Toney was there. You got Norgard, you know, you got Rico Henry. You know, there's players at Brentford that you see, Kevin Sade this season. There's players that really can improve under Thomas Frank. But it's also what could he bring and add to Tottenham? Could we see Mbuemo maybe linked to Tottenham if Thomas Frank goes there? Obviously, he's linked to Man United and Newcastle already. Tottenham are in the Champions League. Tottenham are a team now that are looking for attackers and wingers. I know Mbuemo plays more off the right. Kulusevski plays there. Brennan Johnson. But Heung-min Son's also experienced, but he's on his last legs now. Maybe Mbuemo could be a player that adds goals to that team. So I think that's where Spurs have lacked. Other than Solanke, they don't really have goal scorers now. Maybe Mbuemo and Solanke. What a combination that could be. Could Spurs lure Thomas Frank and lure Brian Mbuemo? That's not something that's impossible, guys. He's in London, great stadium, Champions League football. Because the other name linked to Tottenham was Marco Silva. But I feel like Marco Silva, he should just stay at Fulham for now. I think with Marco Silva, what it is that I feel like he's had opportunities. He's had his chances to sort of kick on, and he hasn't quite done that. Obviously, he's been at Sporting Lisbon, Olympiacos, went to Hull where he kind of made his name a bit more, went to Watford, started off well, didn't work out, went to Everton, started off well, ended a bit, and then Fulham, been a steady ship at Fulham. But I feel like Frank deserves the opportunity, whereas Marcus Silva's maybe had the chances to show he can really go to that next level. Just fell a bit short. Maybe he's ready now. I'm not saying he's not ready now. Maybe Marcus Silva is ready now, but I feel like stay at Fulham for a year, see what you can really do again if you get a bit of backing and get other players in. But I feel like Thomas Frank hasn't had that opportunity yet. He's a manager, he's ready, he's hungry. You know, he talks well. Like I said to you, the man management, which I think you need when you have big personalities. I'm not saying that Tottenham have massive personalities, but they have personalities. People like Christian Romero, Pedro Porro. Do you know what I mean? Bentancur, even, you know, Uruguay international, come from Serie A. You know, there are players there that you're going to have to try and get on board with and, you know, make them believe in the philosophy. And I just feel Thomas Frank can do that. And Marco Silva, stay at Fulham, assess your options, maybe go abroad. If not, maybe stay in the Premier League when another opportunity comes up. But I feel like Thomas Frank and Tottenham suits better. And there would be reservations about it for some Tottenham fans, I'm guessing, because it's like, it's not the biggest name. He hasn't been at a club this size, but sometimes you just don't know until they do it, until they're in that position. And I feel like if you're going to give someone the opportunity, then it should be Thomas Frank. Don't go overseas and get someone that you then don't know if it's going to work out. Perfect example, Girona last year, cooking in the La Liga. Their manager, Michel, however you say it. If Tottenham went for him, yeah, he done well at Girona, but he comes to the Premier League, you really don't know how it's going to work out, and you might be having the fans on his back straight away. At least with Thomas Frank, I think like you know what you're getting. You go into a restaurant, you order garlic bread, you know the garlic bread is normally going to come out of 7, 8 out of 10. So let's see. Let's see. I think Thomas Frank should be the manager of Tottenham next. I think he wants the opportunity. He could bring other players with him. And Ange, you gave him their trophy. I'm sure they're buzzing about it. And you can hold that long lasting in your legacy that you know. I always win things in my second year, mate. Well, you did. So, yeah, guys, like this video, subscribe, let me know your thoughts, and I will catch you on the next video on Never a Foul.